Hello everyone and welcome back to the Synergy Sanctum. My name is Justin. Thank you so much for stopping by. Here at the Synergy Sanctum, we specialize in all things related to Magic the Gathering, with a specific focus on deck building. So I aim to show you very quick deck techs that'll show you all of the cards in the deck and how they work together to ultimately achieve the goals of that deck. If you're not already, please like, share, and subscribe to our channel. We really appreciate that. And we also have a sister channel now, so head on over to Commander Coliseum and check out their content as well.
And for today's deck tech, we have Yurlok of Scorch Thrash, an EDH deck that brings mana burn back to the table. So if you haven't been playing Magic for a while, there used to be this thing called mana burn, where basically that if you had unspent mana at the end of your turn, you would be taking damage for however much mana you had left. So like if I overproduced by 2, then I would be taking 2 damage if it was left unused. So they got rid of that, but Yurlok is bringing it back. So Yurlok says a player losing unspent mana causes that player to lose that much life. So you can kind of see where we're going to go with this. We are going to load up our opponents with mana. We are going to overwhelm them with mana and force them to do things that make mana so that they are losing life. And Yurlok has this built into him as well. So for a single colorless mana, you could tap him to give everybody 3. So if this is on your turn and they don't have instants, then they're kind of screwed and they're going to be immediately taking 3 damage. So TCG market value, pretty expensive, but this deck is so fun and interesting how it always plays out. Market value is $465 to $564, and our land count is at 34 lands, with only 6 of those being basics and the rest being non-basics, which is, you know, where a lot of that budget is going. You could do this with basic lands as well to kind of drive that cost down. So let's talk. How are we going to get people to have extra mana? So we're running things like Mana Flare, Zerta, Ancient, Heartbeat of Spring are all giving extra mana to everybody. So when they're tapping lands, they're getting additional mana. Nyxbloom Ancient is giving you additional mana, but it's giving you triple the amount of mana instead. So you can kind of do a lot of these mana sinks that we're going to go into even more. And then there's these old cards here that basically force people to do things the second they try to do things. So Citadel of Pain says that at the end of each player's turn, it's going to deal damage to that player, where X is the amount of untapped lands they have. So if they decide, okay, I'm just not going to tap my lands, tough cookies, you're still taking damage. Tectonic Instability and Wars Toll says that whenever a land comes in, they got to tap everything, or when they tap a land, they have to tap everything. So basically, they could choose to tap it for mana, or they can just tap it, right? And force it. It basically forces them to either lose all their mana or to just float it all and hope that they can play cards to get rid of it all without taking damage from Yurlok. Mana Web, whenever a land becomes tapped for mana, same deal, they're going to tap everything. Sands of Time, so messed up in this deck. So at the beginning of each player's turn, they're skipping their untap phase, and they're only untapping the things that are tapped, and they're tapping the things that are untapped. So again, we only care about the lands here. So if they're choosing to not use their lands, they're not going to be able to really play the game. 1,000-Year Elixir is allowing us to do Yurlok right away, as well as untap him. And then we're also running Seedborn Muse and Thornbite Staff, so we can untap Yurlok even more and create even more mana on other people's turns. And then here are these mana sinks we were talking about. So we're running a Walking Ballista as a win con, so we can sink a bunch of mana into him, and then that way we're not getting burned, because Yurlok's effect does impact you as well as the player, so you need ways of like dumping the mana. Umbral Mantle and Sword of the Perrunes would allow you to keep untapping him, and then that pretty much goes infinite a lot of the times. Staff of Domination and their combo piece, but you can sink mana into it. Animus Awakening, you can sink mana and go get lands off the top of your deck. Mirage Mirror, you can sink the mana into this to have it become copies, and you can just keep doing that. Insurrection is allowing you to untap all creatures and get control of them, so you can take everybody else's stuff. Comet Storm's doing a bunch of damage. Helix Pinnacle, you can sink into this to create tower counters, and if you have 100 or more at upkeep, you win. So another win con here. Then Diabolic Revelation, 5 mana plus X. You get to tutor for X, so another great mana sink here. And then even more mana sinks, so we're running Zoncha Sleeper Agent, which will be under your opponent's control, but you can sink mana into it to draw and drain their life. Magus of the Candelabra. Magus of the Candelabra is another good mana sink, because you can untap your lands, however much you put into X. Torment of the Hailfire is a really good one. They're going to lose life or sack things. Exsanguate's really solid as well. Leyline of Abundance has the mana sink in the 8 mana at the bottom to put counters on everything you have. And then Kessig Wolfrun is a great one to give a target creature trample for the turn and a boost. And then here's how we kind of control the game and more stacks things and ways of like making sure that this strategy of mana burn's going to hit. So Void Winnower says they can't do even cost spells, so it's limiting what they can cast. Tainted Ether says when a creature comes into play, controller has to sack a creature or land. Really messed up. Sire of Insanity forces everyone to discard, and then they're just top decking with a single card a turn, so they're not going to be able to use the mana, basically. Silent Arbiter is protecting us from attacks. Stone Shaker's Shaman is saying that they have to sack an untapped land if they have one, so they got to use their lands or they lose them. Polluted Bonds is draining life and gaining you some when lands come in. Price of Glory, if they try to interact on your turn, their land's destroyed. And then Painful Quandary, if they cast spells, they're still going to lose life unless they discard a card. And then even more control, we got Opposition Agent to take over when they tutor. No Mercy to destroy stuff if it gets through. Crawl Space, more pillow forting. Doran the Fallen Leaf prevents spells on our turn, so they can't interact on our turn. Same with City of Solitude. And then Caverick the Merciless says when they cast a spell, he's doing damage equal to that mana value to any target, so you can immediately do the damage back to them or to their creatures. And then other good stuff in the deck, we're running Wound Reflection to double up all the life that's being lost. So if they're taking 5 from Mana Burn, they're not going to take 10 total. Phyrexian Arena's extra draws, same with Stormfist, Crusader, and Spiteful Visions. Omnith, Locus of Mana, and Horizon Stone are really good here because they take all of our unspent mana and they make it just basically not, you're not going to lose it for the turn. Basically, it just continues, so you don't deal with mana burn. Scheming Symmetry is another tutor here. Asceticism to protect us. Belby, Corrupted Observer. People are going to be losing life on our turns. So this is getting us additional 2 colorless for every opponent that takes life. We're running Repercussion as well. So if creatures take damage, their opponents are going to still take damage as well. And then Mogus, God of Slaughter, is here. He's going to do 2 damage to each player unless they sack a creature, and he's indestructible, so really solid. And then here's our removal, not too much in the deck, so we are doing a lot of control and discarding, so we're not going to be worried too much about what they play. Board wipes with Toxic Deluge and Blasphemous Act. Targeted removal with Chaos Warp and Assassin's Trophy. And then finally, here's the ways of ramping in the deck or even giving mana to our opponents. So Mana Reflection is doubling up our lands. Magus of the Vineyard and Aladdin's Vineyard is giving 2 green mana to players at their main phase. So if they choose to not use that, it's going to burn them. Ignoble Hierarch, Bloom Tender, Birds of Paradise, those are all of our dorks. Druid of the Elysian Grove is correcting our land, so they're every color, as well as giving us an additional land. And then we obviously have Cultivate to ramp as well.
And with that, our show has come to an end. Thank you so much for watching our video. And if you enjoyed that video, feel free to share it out with any friends who might find value in it as well. Thank you so much for stopping by. We hope to see you again soon. Have a good one.